Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. Thank you for coming out today. We are pleased to have Hank Tobo with us today, longtime St. Andrew member with his wife Katie, who's with us too on the side there. Katie, nice to have you. Hank tells me they've been members since 1977. So outdo a lot of us on the timeline here. So great to have you here today to talk about World War II. And Hank and Katie are of Japanese ancestry, and Hank has done many presentations in other places about World War II issues and the internment camps, starting from there. And so we're going to talk about that and learn a little bit today. Before we do that, Zoomers, nice to welcome you. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen. And we are recording this for future playback on YouTube. And any other announcements? We are going to have our Christmas party on December 9th. We've got approved and confirmed. So we'll be in the gathering space on December 9th. Yes, Becky, you had. Oh. Tomorrow's Ron's birthday. Happy birthday, Ron. 29 again.
One day closer to death.
Then on that cheery thought, one more trip around the sun. That's what.
You know,
And any other announcements? There are ongoing classes and a good webinar coming up with Rev Mark, and so about politics. And so I hope you'll look on the website, St. Andrew website, and sign up for that. It'll be a good Zoom webinar.
Can I say, just in my defense, that
Go ahead, Don.
that was a comment the youth leader did with the young people on the birthday, so don't speak that.
That's okay.
Wrong group.
Right. One day, but 1 year closer to enlightenment. I like that better. Thank you. Well, just briefly, what a week in the news too, with political violence and division, and lots in the news about how to handle that and view that. And what a sad time though. Rev Mark's sermon was good. Yes, another good one and a good series. In fact, I think we'll do, if we have an open time on the calendar, a review of this series, some of the highlights from this series. I think that would be interesting. But on the kind of nice side of the news was the good remembrances of Robert Redford. I thought that that was kind of a warm thing, and such a good person, seemed like a good person. And I was telling Hank, I had the chance to interview him in the 1990s when I was a newspaper reporter doing politics and movie reviews. On the weekends, I would go to Hollywood and interview actors and see new movies. It was in the program that did that. And he was just the most friendly, professional guy. So I was kind of thinking about him this week too. Okay, Becky. Yes, Joy.
There's an event in downtown Littleton.
Event in Littleton. Okay.
It's called the Longer Table.
The Longer Table in Littleton. Okay.
So they're predicting 4,000 people. It goes down the street, a main street of Littleton.
3,000 people expected in Littleton. Okay.
So you don't know, and a community event.
Yes. Okay. Before we start, there is a microphone over on that side. If somebody would grab that and make sure it's on, the green light is on. Thank you, Mary Lou. And just press it on the top, make sure the green light is on. Okay. And so when folks want to speak, hand it over to them, please. Okay, with that, let's start. I introduced Hank a little bit. And that Hank is of Japanese ancestry and said he was born 6 days after Pearl Harbor in Los Angeles. And his folks lived there. His folks came over from Japan. He said they were illegal immigrants, and he's the son of illegal immigrants. And if anybody comes for Hank, for us to please stand up for him. And his folks then, after Pearl Harbor, moved to Greeley, Colorado, and did farming there. And they were not in the internment camps, but you knew folks who were in the camps. Mhm. And Hank went on to have a career with the U.S. Department of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, where he's a program manager. And Hank and Katie have 2 boys. So with that, let's see what Hank has to say today. Thank you, Hank, for being here.
Good morning. And thank you, Steve, for giving me a platform for this presentation. Before I start, here are several books that I'm going to pass around that I did my readings from to get most of my presentation written. So,
This one says lesser known facts on Pearl Harbor.
oh,
Interesting. Hiroshima book and Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
well,
Microphone, he's gonna hold it close and
I'm going to hold it close.
and speak loud, Hank.
Okay, all right. This morning, I'm gonna speak about why the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And why specifically on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So there are several reasons that I came up with. So I'll number them as we go along in the discussion. So on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese Empire bombed Pearl Harbor. And on December 8th, 1945, the US declared war on Japan, Germany, and Italy. World War II continued for an agonizing 4 years. The US developed the atomic bombs and they were dropped on 2 Japanese cities. Some military officers and politicians believed that the bombing of the cities was not necessary. And they thought by December of 1945, Japan would have surrendered on their own volition. As I mentioned today, I want to talk about why. Why were the bombs dropped? And why specifically on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I'm going to give you some thoughts that you might want to consider why the bombs were dropped. It may be one reason or all of the above, but some of the reasons might surprise you. So let's get started. We have some outlines that you've received, so you can follow along with the outline. So why drop the bombs? One may be the cost of development. The idea of a nuclear weapon was started on August 2nd, 1939, even before US getting into World War II, by President Roosevelt, who set in motion to develop the powers for establishing a properly funded nuclear weapons project, which would create the largest military corporation. And on September 1942, the Manhattan Engineering District, and you know it as the Manhattan Project, was created at a cost of $2 billion. And in today's dollars, that would translate to about 35 billion. There were several appointments made. Brigadier General Leslie Richard Groves was appointed to head the military part of the MED. And Julius Robert Oppenheimer was selected to head the laboratories. Many of you may have seen the movie of Oppenheimer and all the problems and the anxiety they went through in developing the bomb. Los Alamos, New Mexico was selected as the site for the laboratory. Number two, how about considering power? The US wanted to develop a bomb naturally before Russia did.
That's what I want to say.
The successful testing of the bomb was on July 16th, 1945, and Truman was advised of that success. The US did not want to share in the defeat of Japan with Russia. For political reasons, Truman did not want Stalin to be at the surrender table. He hoped to defeat the Japanese without the Russians. The bomb was Truman's ace in the hole. The atomic bomb was a diplomatic stick, and it would serve as evidence of US power and against the further Soviet advancement into Asia and Europe. The power grab was the start of the Cold War. Number three, how about revenge for the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor? For the atrocities committed by the Japanese on the American troops in the Pacific Theater. And then Japan was ignoring the international laws of warfare. The Americans' conscience was clearly on revenge. Number four, this might be something that not too many people have heard of, is the Potsdam Conference, which was held from July 17th to August 2nd, 1945. And would you believe Potsdam, Germany? Big three allies, Truman, Churchill, and Stalin, who developed and agreed to 4 conditions: the demilitarization of Germany and the division of Germany into 4 occupational zones. They established the Council of Ministers to establish the agreement. They prosecuted the Nazi war criminals. They also issued the Potsdam Proclamation. Proclamation term number 13 was most damaging to the Japanese because it demanded unconditional surrender or face prompt and utter destruction. The proclamation became the formal demand for surrender. And would you believe I came up with Japanese opposition? Number 5. The Big Six Imperial Council was the decision makers for the emperor and broke down into the peace and war factions, which were equally split, so no decision could be made as to surrendering or fighting. The council wanted the imperial house to be intact. That means the whole question of surrender hinged on whether or not the US would grant the Japanese their single abiding request, which was the retention of the emperor. The war faction controlled the armed forces, which officers resisted any talk of surrender. Emperor Hirohito supported the emperor, supported the military. Japan, number 6, Japan ignored the Potsdam Proclamation and would kill it with silence. A Japanese negotiating tactic that treated the demand for unconditional surrender with silent contempt. The Americans interpreted Japan's silence as an emphatic rejection of the Potsdam Proclamation. So you have the bombing of Hiroshima, number 7. Japan was unwilling to accept unconditional surrender, even after the dropping of the bomb. Their mantra was fighting to the death. The Japanese Empire had no alternative but fight on with all its strength for the honor and existence of the motherland. The people lived with the myth of Japanese supremacy. The people were so immersed in Japan being a superpower that they could not contemplate defeat. Surrender was unthinkable. The Japanese people had what I call this samurai mentality. The Japanese word for this mentality is Bushido, the way of the warrior. The warrior has military skills. He was fearless and was extremely loyal to his lord. Number 8, by mid-1945, Japan, I think, was already defeated. Defeated in the air war. Since 1944, Japan's air losses have been catastrophic. They were defeated in the sea war. The Americans had sunk or disabled all 27 Japanese aircraft carriers. After the immense sea battle in October 1944, the Japanese no longer had a fleet that could even mount an offensive.
Hank, could I ask a question? Hank said it's okay if we ask questions while he's speaking. So is that the general reason why some people say that may not have been necessary to drop the atomic bomb, was because Japan was losing already so much military power before the bomb was even dropped?
That's right.
Is that right?
That's correct.
And so people think if we just waited some weeks or months, soon they would have surrendered anyway.
Right, that was the conclusion of some of the, writers that, I read their books, and that was one of their conclusions. But I'll
But
get
what
to-
about the argument that many lives were saved by the dropping of the atomic bomb? Because the war would have gone on and many more would have died. And so it was more wise to drop it and stop the war right away.
That's right, and the bombings, they had the fire bombings of Japan.
Tokyo.
And the fire bombings did more damage than the atomic bombs as far as, the killings or the loss of people's life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even in Tokyo itself, they had lost, over 80,000 people
Yeah.
in the city, but
In one night,
in one,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
what, wasn't it that more American lives were saved, not necessarily Japanese?
It would include the Japanese, but naturally, the Americans of the US were thinking about the lives of the American troops.
Okinawa. Yeah. Some estimates were it would have cost 1 to 2 million Allied servicemen their lives to have
British,
invaded Japan.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the cost of Japanese civilians, and we could talk to Jim Watson, who was there at Okinawa. It would have cost tens of thousands of Japanese civilians,
That's correct, yes.
for sure, more than that. Yeah.
I'm gonna get on to, another question?
Go ahead, grab the microphone and send it over to Bill, please. Thank you.
One of the things that I had read several times was when the US was coming up to the South Pacific and, taking island by island. And, but the Japanese, army they were such formidable fighters and they would fight to the death.
Yeah.
And, even, a small island like, Iwo Jima, with the big, the losses were incredible. And, the Allied troops eventually, prevailed, just even for a small island going up there, that, the fighting spirit and skill of the Japanese, army, and navy was incredible. And that's why so many lives were lost, until they would, and they figured, I guess, when they got to the mainland, it would be the same thing.
That's right, yes.
Bill, just hang on to the microphone.
Okay, so they were defeated in the land war. Japan's ground forces were defeated throughout the Pacific and Burma. The Australians had driven Japan out of Papua. The British prevailed in Burma. And MacArthur's forces, as has been mentioned, had defeated them in the Solomon Islands, the Philippines, then a string of small atolls. Japan was defeated in the ability to fight. The American naval blockades choked Japan's ability to ship in food and supplies. The blockade sealed off the country. Now, here's the one that also, we talk about their defeats. It's a defeat economically. In the first half of 1945, the imports of oil, coal, iron ore, and rubber were stopped. In March, all imports of coal, which powered most of Japan's industry, were cut off. In July, the oil refineries were nearly out of oil. The steel mills were short of ore and coke. The munitions plants were shutting down for the lack of steel and aluminum. The war against shipping was the most decisive single factor in the collapse of Japanese economy. Japan's entire island economy relied on China and Korea. Oh, question, I'm sorry.
Who boycotted Japan for the supplies, and why wasn't it done sooner? You said it was they stopped these supplies in 1945, or
Yes.
so why wasn't it done earlier?
They were doing that. It just took that much time for the military to destroy most of their shipping ships to be able to stop the supplies from coming in, so
They
it.
would have
it did-
warehoused, they had a warehouse.
Yes, that too, they had their own supplies, so they eventually ran out because of the blockades. Okay, so one thing that I hesitate to mention was with Japan's resources becoming so cut off that Japan's military was down to their last natural resource. And would you believe, oh, okay, would you believe it was the large number of able-bodied young men willing to die that was their last natural resource?
Wow.
So.
Okay, so there were the 8 reasons for the dropping of the bombs. Now, let's go on to why Hiroshima. Hiroshima was on the first short list that was prepared by the US Air Force, along with the cities of Kokura, Kyoto, and Niigata. Okay, the 3 cities met these criteria. On April 27th, 1945, General Groves laid down his criteria for the selection of the target city. He was first a colonel, and he was Colonel Leslie Richard Groves, an Army engineer, was appointed on August 16th, 1942, to lead the military aspect of the Manhattan Project. He was immediately promoted to Brigadier General. Groves became one of the most powerful men in America at that time. The Manhattan Engineering District, the MED, was the culmination of an idea set in motion on August 2nd, 1939, by President Roosevelt to develop the powers for establishing a properly funded nuclear weapon project, which would create one of the largest corporations and absorb the time and brain power of the most brilliant scientists.
I got a comment.
Yes.
One of the reasons why Groves was selected was because he had completed the construction of the Pentagon on time and under budget.
First in America. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
With the military support, the scientists would develop, produce, and test the first nuclear weapon. Julius Robert Oppenheimer was selected by General Groves in September of 1942 to head up the laboratories to create the atomic bomb. Los Alamos, New Mexico was selected as a site for the laboratory.
As well as Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Oh, yes.
We lived there.
Oh, you did?
Worked. And,
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
gaseous diffusion. Yeah.
that was mentioned and I had to sort out what I wanted to.
Well, there were many sites.
Yes, there were.
Hanford, Washington
Hanford,
was
yeah.
maybe the even more important. Oak Ridge and Hanford were the two.
Well, one did uranium, and the other did plutonium. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the four criterias that General Groves laid out for the target cities. The cities had to have sentimental value to the Japanese people. And if you can imagine, I think just about every city had sentimental value. It had military significance, such as maybe a munition plant or a shipping port or Japanese troop concentration. They wanted the city, or he wanted the city most intact. He did not want the city to be damaged by previous bombings because they wanted to see what the bomb would do.
Yeah.
And the bomb's magnitude. The city must be of such size to show the devastating power of the bomb. So Hiroshima had, this is number three, Hiroshima had important depots. It was the port of troop embarkation. It was the largest untouched city. It had sentimental value to the people. And it had no allied prisoner of war camps.
Oh,
Interesting.
Kyoto, however, had support from a high US official. Secretary of War Stinson and his wife had previously visited Kyoto, and they were so impressed with the beauty of the temples and shrines that he had it removed from the list.
Oh, that's good.
really?
In June 1945, Stinson ordered the immediate removal of Kyoto. Kokura was to the military the most obvious target. It had the biggest arsenal. It housed naval guns and military vehicles. They had coal and ore docks, power plants, steelworks, and railroad yards. It was a clean city. It had no damage from the war. They too did not have any Allied prisoner of war camps. It did have the size to demonstrate the bomb's magnitude. Nagita was less appealing to the target committee because they had fire resistance industrial plants. The homes were built with heavier plaster and therefore less combustible. What this means is that they wanted to see what the bomb's ability was, and this city had some construction that would prevent that. But it did show the size of the city to be the destructive power of, show the destructive power of the bomb. So Hiroshima was then designated by the target committee as the primary target. On August 6th, 1945, the weather report from the Air Force reconnaissance plane called the Straight Flush flying over Hiroshima said in the weather data, and it was decoded, bomb primary, bomb Hiroshima. So at 8:15, 17 AM, the bomb bay doors opened. So there are 7 reasons that I came up with why Hiroshima was selected.
Hank, this makes me wonder about if Russia has the same kind of analysis of where they would bomb America.
Uh-huh.
If Denver would be a sentimental target or a good military basis target or Los Angeles, is anybody? Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead,
for
Ron.
next week's lesson, we actually have a chart showing
Yeah.
the primary nuclear targets of the United States. So that will show you.
I didn't know, I wasn't setting him up.
That's one of the charts.
But you know that they would do that kind of analysis too, just like we did on. Yeah.
So this leads right into next week here for you.
I'm sorry?
This week, but I'm discussing it will lead right into your,
Yeah. Next week,
Presentation next
we're gonna talk about, space warfare, Golden Dome defense shields, and nuclear threats.
okay.
So.
Okay.
Good commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Why Nagasaki? A second demand for surrender was sent to Japan. After the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima, the US again contacted Japan and demanded unconditional surrender. No response was received from Japan. Their tactic was to kill with silence. The response triggered the second mission. The second mission is kind of interesting in that there was no presidential consent or no presidential objection. And mainly that was because no one sought presidential approval. General Groves was in control. He approved the second mission.
Oh, okay.
The Russian invasion of Manchuria accelerated the decision for the second mission. America was in a race to force Japan's surrender and deny Soviet participation in an American victory over Japan.
Yeah, because they were afraid it was gonna set up another division of Japan and it would swing over to the communists, like the way Stalin had done to Eastern Europe. Once they conquered those countries, they automatically stayed within the communist sphere of influence.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Could you expand a little bit on no presidential or no approval sought? The military,
Surprisingly, since Groves was in control, all the bomb making was going on. In fact, even after the second dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima, they had already produced 3 other bombs. And Truman cut them off. He said, no more bombs. And therefore, as far as the objection, they just didn't. I guess nobody ever thought about asking Truman whether the bombs should be dropped. Truman's position was that he was creating the bomb for military purposes and he used them as such. And even though the second bomb in Nagasaki was dropped, he was all for it. So there was, since they didn't ask him, he didn't object.
no congressional action.
Yeah, you would think congressional approval would be part of the process too.
They had already approved.
They'd already approved it. Consensus, just give Groves carte blanche to do what he thinks is right. Huh.
Yeah.
It wasn't just.
With help from Curtis LeMay, the Air Force.
So the US didn't want Russia at the surrender table.
Exactly.
They want to get this war over quickly, but as I mentioned, the Japanese government, the leaders were not ready for surrender. So the target committee again provided a short list of 3 cities for the second drop. They included Kokura, which was the most obvious military target, Nagasaki, and Nagita. The selected target was Kokura. The secondary target was Nagasaki.
Steve, could you move the camera back to Hank, please?
Oh, sorry. Okay, sure. I'll try that.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you for letting me know, Susan. Never know what the camera's gonna do.
Yes.
Go ahead, Hank.
Okay. So Kokura was covered by heavy smoke and haze from the previous night's bombing of a nearby city. So the first run was aborted. Major Charles Sweeney, the commander of the plane, decided to try again, something a bomber would rarely do, as naturally it would risk drawing enemy fire. So the second attempt also failed, as the bombardier reported visibility nil. Would you believe the major dared a third attempt? He came in from a different angle, but the winds of destiny spared Kokura. So the order now was attack secondary, which was Nagasaki, yes. As the plane was now getting critically low on fuel, the crew flew to Nagasaki. The plane began its descent a few seconds after 11 a.m. on August 8th. A gap in the cloud revealed buildings several miles north of the city center. And the target committee wanted to be the city center for the bomb. Fat Man, the plutonium, I think, triggered bomb
Yes.
was dropped, and it detonated over a densely populated Urakami district, where Japan's largest Christian community was located, along with the city's medical and educational center. So there you have it. The 8 reasons for dropping the bomb and the reason for the selection of Hiroshima, which had 7 reasons, and Nagasaki 5. So if we have any other questions, we're open. Yes.
I read several books on Douglas MacArthur and George Patton, and both of them were opposed to dropping the bomb. They wanted to go in and fight it out with the Japanese.
Really?
Yeah, MacArthur was opposed to it
Why did they want to fight instead?
because they thought that was the honorable thing to do as a warrior.
Oh,
They still believe in honor in terms of fighting.
well,
Not considering the impact or the deaths, they just thought that was an honorable way to go. And that the bomb was not an honorable way to end the war.
Well, that was the Japanese opinion also, that they would much rather fight
Yeah.
than have to have bombs, especially nuclear bombs, dropped on the cities to end the war.
But MacArthur was also the one that said and went along with the idea that we cannot touch the emperor, even though he had been implicated in a myriad ways as being aligned with the military. MacArthur told Truman and the other chiefs of staff, we cannot touch him. We just can't do it.
Why not? What's
Because he is because that would be attacking the whole Japanese history. Their
The God at that point, they can find a new.
Yes, it was. Yes, it
Interesting.
was.
Mary was next, and then come back to, somebody hand the microphone to Mary, please.
So I have to preface this by saying, history is not my strong point by any means, but I don't know if I've seen it on movies or television shows, but several times I've heard that the United States actually knew about the bombing, that they were planning to bomb Pearl Harbor, and they let it happen because they wanted a rationale for them to be entered into the World War. Is there factual truth to that?
I'm not too sure if it's factual, but Roosevelt did not want to enter the war without a reason. He wanted somebody to, in fact, the reason is Pearl Harbor, but he antagonized the Japanese by stopping a lot of the oil imports into Japan. So that may be one reason why Japan finally decided that, hey, can't take this anymore, and decided to.
But do you think that, he knew that Japan was planning to bomb?
I would think probably he did know there was something coming up.
Were there any peaceful uses of atomic energy developed before the bombs were dropped?
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead, while the microphone's going back to her, go ahead, Ron.
Sure. We should also add that the impetus to develop the bomb was fear that Germany would get there first.
Exactly.
Nobody thought Japan or Russia or anybody else was anywhere close. The letter from, I believe it was Einstein.
It was Einstein.
To FDR,
December
warned
19th.
him,
Yeah.
we better get off our duff and really pour it on, because they're gonna beat us to the bomb. And there was real fear that what would happen if Hitler got the bomb.
December 1939 is when he got that.
Yeah, right. And so that was the big fear by far.
So, my dad served, and, I was in a social studies class, and we were talking about the trials at Nuremberg.
Ah.
And, one thing led to another, and I asked the question, well, would you consider the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to be war crimes? Well, I was talking to my dad about it, who was a Navy sailor. He was actually on his ship on the way to Japan for the planned invasion of Japan.
Yeah.
And, that generation didn't talk much about their experiences. But his very, very impassioned speech to me was that he was told, he was of the mind, and he was in the middle of it, that so many more lives would have been lost had they been forced to invade Japan. And, basically said, and you might not be here. So anyway, I think that was a very predominant, I think anytime a government does that, they really need to have faithful justification. And so that is really what he felt on a very basic, level, because he was on the ship and he was on his way.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, who else over here? Mary, go ahead and give it to Susie. And then I'm gonna ask our Zoomers if they'd like to weigh in.
In 1986, I bought a Toyota
And my neighbor next door had, fought in the South Pacific. He was on a carrier. And like, he wouldn't talk to me forever. He was really mad that I bought a Japanese car.
Oh, my.
He got over it, but yeah, it didn't even occur to me, you know?
Yes.
Mitsubishi.
Interesting. Yes, go ahead. Microphone, please.
I just want to say thank you so much for this lesson today. I've got a feeling there may be others in the room that know a lot about the war in Europe, but I've never known this much about the war in Japan. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious, did you have family? I know your family had already immigrated, but did you all still have family in Japan near either one of the sites?
My family, was fairly well to the south of, Hiroshima. And, actually was in, a city named Kagoshima, which is at the south end of the island of Kyushu. But my wife's family background, people did live in Hiroshima, but I think they were pretty far away from the city in that they were spared all this devastation.
Interesting. I want to ask the same question to Alan and Yue Yamamoto, if I could, please. Did you have any family there during World War II?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Have the microphone.
Let's give the microphone to Alan. And any of your thoughts, Alan, on the presentation today?
Oh, thank you very much, Hank.
Oh, thank you.
Very, very informative. Well, both you and I, our roots, do come from Japan. I'm third generation. So my parents were in the States during the bombing of Pearl Harbor and were involved in the internment of the Japanese Americans, particularly in California. But I did not have direct relatives living in, for example, the firebombing of Tokyo. However, when I lived there some years ago, I did bump into other Japanese who lived through the bombing of Tokyo. And to this day, still have some very bitter feelings towards that decision because they lost their homes, they were starving, eating rats, and all that, you know, it was very horrible. U.S. family is from Osaka, and you want to.
I don't have any direct families who were killed in Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but my mother was 10 years old when the war ended, so she still remembered and what when they went through, especially her mother, means my grandmother. She had 8 children, and they had to send all the kids to the country rural side. They had to live separately, and also my grandmother stole some vegetable from farmers at night because they didn't have anything to eat. And the bombing claim that I've been wondering why they had to put the second one to Nagasaki. Just one is enough. That's what I thought. Then today's lecture says because of Soviet proceeded to Manchuria, then that was the one that upset Japanese basically because probably you don't know that between Japan and USSR had a treaty that each other, they do not proceed to their opponents' land or anything. Then USSR broke the treaty. So right now, well, what I can say is right now is that don't trust Russia. Nothing else.
That was the long telegram I told you about.
And still they occupied several islands from north side of Japan,
Yes.
illegally.
Yeah.
They put all the military stuff and, anyway.
Yeah.
I heard that Chinese knew that in the future, someday that Russia gonna invade from those islands towards the farthest north, biggest island
Yeah.
on Hokkaido someday. That's why the Chinese people don't buy lands closer north. Anyway, I don't know what's gonna going on in the next 100 years.
Thank you, Yue and Alan. Appreciate that very much. I want to give our Zoomers a chance. We've got 5 minutes left. Would anybody on Zoom like to make a comment or question? Just go ahead. If not, that's all right. And just come on in the next few minutes if you want to. Alan, what is the answer? Why wouldn't Japan have surrendered right after they saw how devastating the first bomb was? Why the silence?
It was, to me, it was their samurai mentality.
Yeah.
They felt that they were a superior state, that they were able with their men still to fight. And that was the honorable way to.
And maybe they thought we only had one of those big bombs. Think that might have been?
Maybe.
They knew that after the bomb was dropped. But when I say they, the government knew, but they would not let the people know. They still wanted to maintain the superiority, but the US dropped leaflets on Nagasaki prior to the dropping of the bombs. And the people were warned not to read the pamphlets.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
The Japanese government told them, don't read the pamphlet.
Right. Or much like Germany, the people were told that they will be detained or imprisoned if they even looked at the pamphlets. And because of the Japanese loyalty to the emperor, they weren't going to look at anything, so they didn't even know the bombs were dropped. The rest of the country did not know that.
Have you or Katie felt discrimination during your life because of World War II?
Not me personally. I don't think I would have recognized
Okay.
being the Japanese mentality that you really don't think that anybody's really discriminating upon you. I don't know, maybe Katie might have.
Okay. Katie, do you want to say anything? Microphone to Katie.
Yeah, no, I don't think I was ever directly, I felt it, but I think my grandparents, when they came out of the relocation camps, I mean, they felt it, I'm sure they didn't want to return to California. They stayed here in Colorado. And, you know, I think there were signs up saying no Japs allowed in different restaurants or barber shops. So I think it was pretty blatant right after the war.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I want to come back to you, Bill, but let's let Alan comment on this too. Alan, did you or your family have any discrimination?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, my father was went to a relocation camp out in California. He was a student at the University of Southern California. And he was a 6th degree black belt in Kendo, which is Japanese fencing. and he went to fight or spar with Korean and Japanese kendo teams, including the Japanese Imperial Guard in Tokyo, and which they defeated, by the way. And their dojo was all Japanese Americans from Los Angeles, but they made a photo album of all the teams that they sparred with. And at the time of Pearl Harbor, the FBI got a copy of that photo album and said, there must have, these trips to Japan and Korea must have been spy trips. And so that was the primary reason my father rounded up really quickly and put into the Manzanar relocation camp. And it took him about 2 years to prove to the government that he went on those trips just for sport.
His sport, yeah.
But my only personal experience being discriminated has been primarily when I was younger. I was raised in Dallas, Texas, where there were at that time very few Asians anywhere in the metro district. And as a child, for a lot of kids my age, they never seen an Asian would, comment about how I looked and why my eyes were the way they were. But as an adult, the only time I was discriminated against, I used to be in the cardiac pacemaker business. And one of my jobs was to program these implantable pacemakers. And I was down in Pueblo and I was checking this patient's pacemaker, and he looked at me and he said, "You are a Jap and you will not lay one hand on me." And I found out he was a survivor of Pearl Harbor.
Oh.
And that was the only time in my profession, of my 40 years in the pacemaker industry, did I ever run into a direct confrontation because of what he thought about me.
Thank you for sharing that with us. We are out of time, but I want to give Bill a chance to do the last question. That's right.
Oh, this is pretty minor. We were talking about the approval of the president or to, drop the bomb. Truman did approve the first one, but actually, from several sources that I've seen, the next one was just part of the plan. It was just, they were gonna wait like 2 days or something like that, but that was already in motion. And so it was like, this is all part of the same thing. It wasn't like, no one had ever thought of that. It was in the plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
very good. Thank you, Hank. I think we learned a lot. Thank you, everybody, for coming. See you next week.
Yeah.